I always thought I'd see it coming. I mean, you hear stories like this. Some poor guy gets blindsided, completely in the dark while his world crumbles behind his back. And you tell yourself I'd never let that be me. You think you're smarter, more aware, more in tune. You convince yourself that you'd spot the signs, that you'd catch the change in tone, the late-night texts, the sudden interest in girls' nights. But here's the truth. It doesn't come all at once. Creeps in. And for me, it started with a damn smartwatch. Rachel usually kept hers on her wrist all day. She was a fitness junkie, always checking her steps, her heart rate, standing rings, whatever. But that evening, she had taken it off and left it charging in the kitchen. I didn't think much of it at the time, just reached across the counter for my keys, heading out to grab groceries. That's when the screen lit up. Destination: Lakeside Lofts. ETA: 9:42 p.m. I stood there for a second, staring at it like it had just spoken out loud. I had never heard of the place, but something about it didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the time, almost 9 p.m. already, or the fact that she hadn't mentioned going anywhere. Just told me she was going to take a hot shower and get into bed early. Said work had fried her. And yet here was her smartwatch, quietly navigating her to a luxury condo complex I didn't even know existed. I didn't say anything that night. Not at first. I just watched. The next morning, while she was making coffee, I casually asked if she'd gone out after I fell asleep. She blinked at me and tilted her head. No? Why? I shrugged. Thought I heard the garage door. Oh, she laughed, brushing it off. You were dreaming, babe. I didn't even leave the house. Lie number 1. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but something inside me tightened. That quiet little voice we all have. Some people call it instinct, others call it paranoia. It didn't shut up. It got louder. Later that week, while syncing our shared expenses on Mint, I noticed a new transaction. Dinner at Ardell, a trendy spot downtown that we had talked about going to but never had. The bill? A table for 2, easily over $150 with tip. That restaurant didn't even do takeout. Did you go out to eat this week? I asked her that night, halfway through Netflix and pretending like the question was an afterthought. She frowned. No. Why? Saw a charge for Ardell. Thought maybe you went with a client? Her face didn't change. Too fast, too practiced. Oh, yeah, Lindsay and I went there Tuesday. It was kind of a spontaneous girls' night. Right. Lindsay, the universal scapegoat. Cool, I said, nodding slowly. You guys split the bill? She blinked again. Yeah. Why? Just curious. Lie number 2. And a bad one. I didn't even need to ask Lindsay. I already knew. And then came the third piece, too perfectly placed to be coincidence. I came home early from a work meeting and walked in just as Rachel and Lindsay were filming something in our living room. Rachel was standing behind the couch, holding a white envelope and a camera, trying to stifle her laugh. I had no idea what was going on until she handed me the envelope and told me to read it out loud. It was an eviction notice. A fake one. It looked real, like something slapped together using an online template. Had my full name, our address, dates, signatures. The words failure to comply in bold at the top. My stomach dropped. She was recording the whole thing, grinning behind the phone like it was the funniest thing in the world. Got you, she laughed. We're doing a prank series for TikTok. This is part 1. I didn't laugh. Couldn't. I just stood there holding this sheet of paper, fake or not, thinking, why? Why go through all this trouble? What kind of person creates a forged eviction notice and films it for internet points? Rachel nudged my arm, still giggling. Babe, it's a joke. You look like you saw a ghost. I tried to smile. Yeah, just caught off guard. And I was, but not for the reasons she thought. Something about the whole thing felt too deliberate, too well-timed, like she knew I was starting to ask questions, like she needed to throw me off. And for a minute it worked. I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe the dinner receipt was old. Maybe the GPS was just from her looking up directions out of curiosity. Maybe she did go to Ardell with Lindsay, and the watch had a weird sync delay. I mean, people make dumb purchases all the time and forget about them. People prank their spouses, right? It's normal. But it wasn't. None of it was. Because a week later, I checked her calendar. All her events were wiped. She used to plan everything: meetings, yoga, brunch, even nail appointments. Her Google Calendar was practically her second brain. But suddenly it was empty. The only entry: dinner with Dan Redhart from 2 weeks ago, which I had added myself. I asked her about it. She shrugged. Said she was starting fresh. That phrase echoed in my head for days. Then I noticed her car seat had been adjusted, mirror out of place, steering wheel tilted, seat memory reset to guest. She was the only one who drove it. And even that could have been dismissed if it hadn't been for one final thing. The smart lock history. We had a Nest lock on our front door. Every guest code had a log, timestamps, names. One day while she was out, I was checking our delivery notifications and clicked into the history out of habit. I noticed something odd. Her friend Chloe's code had been used at 11:47 a.m. the previous Friday, except Chloe hadn't been over in months. Rachel had even mentioned how busy she'd been. And even if Chloe had stopped by, why would she use the guest code and not just text Rachel to open the door? The pieces didn't scream betrayal on their own. But together, they whispered. They whispered liar. I didn't confront her right away. I played along, pretended I was clueless. But I started watching closer. Tracking things I'd never paid attention to before. How often she turned off location sharing, how she started taking phone calls outside, how she kept her phone screen tilted just out of view. And through it all, the memory of that fake eviction notice haunted me. Because Rachel didn't realize it at the time, but that little prank was the start of her undoing. That one sheet of fake legalese she laughed over and filmed for clicks would later become the exact loophole I needed. The paper trail. The malicious misrepresentation. The thing that took me from betrayed husband to legal victor. She played her game. She thought it was funny. But what she didn't know was, I had already started mine. You don't want to believe it at first. You want to believe she's just tired. That work is stressful. That she's still the woman you married. The one who used to fall asleep on your shoulder watching reruns and leave dumb sticky notes on your bathroom mirror. But that version of Rachel had started to fade. Quietly, subtly. Like she was being replaced by someone wearing her face but moving just slightly out of sync. And the more I watched, the more the seams started to show. Started with her phone. She had always been private with it. Sure. But it used to live on the coffee table or in her purse. Now, it was like it had become a second limb. She kept it face down, even when it was just the two of us at home. And it was never out of her reach. Not in the shower, not when she was asleep, not even when she walked the dog. One night, she forgot to turn off her screen preview, and I caught a glimpse of a message bubble that simply said, "Same time tomorrow?" No contact name, just a burner number. When she saw me glance at it, she flipped the screen down and gave me this half-smile. "Spam," she said. "I swear these bots are getting smarter." I didn't say anything, just nodded. But inside, something cracked. After that, I started keeping track, not in a formal way, not with spreadsheets or spy apps, but just noting patterns, the stuff that made my gut twist. She started going to yoga again. At least, that's what she said. But the studio she used to go to was on 95th. Less than 10 minutes from our place. Now, she claimed to be trying a new instructor across town. Some boutique wellness center buried in the middle of the business district. She always left around 6:30 p.m. and came home around 9, dripping in sweat but never carrying a mat, towel, or water bottle. I asked her how the classes were going. She smiled and said, "Transformative. That's not even a yoga word. That's an interview word." Then there were the cash withdrawals. Small at first, $40 here, $60 there. But it added up. Rachel rarely used cash. She hated change, literally. Used to call it pocket noise. Now suddenly she was making ATM withdrawals every week, always at random stations nowhere near our neighborhood. I checked the bank's ATM locator, and one of the addresses didn't even match a real bank. It was a 7-Eleven 2 blocks from the Lakeside Lofts. And the seat memory? That one hit me in the chest. We both drove her SUV sometimes, mostly when my car was in for service. She had memory presets. Hers was slot 1, mine was 2. The car would adjust everything automatically. Seat, mirrors, steering, even the lumbar setting. But one morning, I got in to drive it to work and noticed the seat was pushed all the way back. Mirror was tilted. Preset 3. Guessed. I hadn't touched the car in weeks. She brushed it off again when I asked. Oh, probably valet. I ran errands downtown. Sure. But valet drivers don't program memory settings. They don't rename a slot guessed. Around the same time, I started getting notifications from our smart home system, Nest alerts mostly. I had set it up when we bought the place and I had admin access. It tracked door locks, motion cameras, thermostat schedules. Rachel used to ask me to change settings for her. Now, she was disabling features behind my back. One day, while I was out of town for work, the front door log pinged me with something strange. Chloe's old guest code was used again. The same one that had shown up weeks earlier. The time? 2:14 p.m. on a Thursday. Rachel was working from home that day. When I confronted her, casually, I said something like, "Hey, did Chloe swing by while I was gone?" She barely looked up from her laptop. "Oh yeah, she needed to grab her charger. I forgot to tell you." That's when I knew. She didn't even try anymore. She didn't care enough to keep the lie clean. Chloe didn't own the same phone as Rachel. Never had a reason to keep a charger here. And then came the kicker. The one that made my stomach fold in on itself. Rachel used Google Calendar religiously. She had 5 color-coded calendars synced together. Personal, work, fitness, friends, and something she jokingly named Queen Mode for hair and spa appointments. That calendar was a roadmap to her life. Until one day it wasn't. I logged in like I had before, just to check if we had anything planned that weekend, and saw nothing. I mean nothing. Every event was gone. No brunch with her friends, no Zoom meetings, no gym classes, no reminders. Just a single blank week stretching out like an empty desert. When I asked her about it, she acted like I was the crazy one. "I'm trying out analog planning," she said, holding up a leather-bound planner she'd never once used in the 3 years I'd known her. "I'm tired of my phone running my life." Analog Rachel, right? Even her speech had changed, subtle but different. She started using new phrases, corporate-sounding stuff, like optics and managing perception and emotional capacity. Words I'd only ever heard in meetings. It was like she was rehearsing lines from someone else's vocabulary. Someone who wasn't me. The more I noticed, the more I questioned. I started walking around like a detective in my own home, scared to touch anything out of place. Her perfume lingered too long in the hallway some nights. Once I found 2 water glasses in the guest room, one with lipstick, one without. She claimed she had been cleaning and forgot to rinse them. I played dumb. I played calm. But the truth was, I was unraveling. Quietly. Alone. I wanted to be wrong. I hoped every little clue was just a coincidence. But deep down, I knew. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was a pattern. Still, none of it was concrete. I had shadows and half-truths. I had guesses. And guesses don't hold up when someone's lying to your face with a straight voice and steady hands. But I was patient. I had stopped trying to catch her in the moment. I realized that people like Rachel, people who lie like it's oxygen, they don't confess when you corner them. They only crack when you step back, let them spiral, and collect the evidence they don't realize they're leaving behind. I started making copies. **TS of bank statements. Exports of the smart lock logs. Photos of the car's seat memory settings. Timestamped notes on calendar deletions. I wasn't sure what I was building toward. At least not yet. I wasn't even sure if I was ready to admit what I already knew. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't just a confused husband anymore. I was preparing for something. I just didn't know what. Not yet. It wasn't enough to suspect. Not anymore. Doubt had turned into a low, constant hum inside me. Something between dread and determination. You can only live in the gray area for so long before it eats you alive. I had too many scattered pieces, and it was time to start snapping them together. That's when I turned to the only person I trusted outside of myself. My cousin Jordan. He worked in data security, mostly dull stuff like firewalls and compliance protocols, but he knew how to find things. He owed me a favor, and for once, I cashed in without hesitation. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. That Rachel had been acting strange. That I had suspicions. That I needed help finding out the truth. He didn't even flinch. Just asked for logins, dates, and a couple of sample receipts. 3 days later, he called me. "Dude," he said quietly, like he was afraid someone else might hear. "You were right." Those 3 words hit harder than any punch could have. I didn't say anything, just waited as he filled in the blanks. He had matched credit card transactions with rideshare data, both ours and public logs from a transportation app Rachel had used through her work perks. I never would have even thought of that angle, but Jordan did. He cross-referenced times and addresses and came up with a clear pattern. Every yoga night lined up with a ride to or from Lakeside Lofts. And she wasn't alone. Ride records showed dual pickups. The logs didn't list names, but they did list phones pinged at the same location, one of which belonged to a Thomas Riley. Tom Riley. I remembered the name. He was a former colleague of hers. They worked on a consulting project together before he left the firm. I'd met him once at a Christmas party. Seemed like a quiet, buttoned-up guy. I remember thinking he looked more like a grad student than a corporate strategist. But I also remember how Rachel's voice shifted slightly when she introduced him. Higher pitch. Lingering eye contact. Back then, I ignored it. I was secure. I had no reason not to be. Now I couldn't stop seeing it. Jordan dug deeper. Found that Tom and Rachel were both on the same Wi-Fi network several times over the past month. That sounded like nothing until you realize Wi-Fi networks have unique IDs. And the one they both kept showing up on belonged to Unit 6B, Lakeside Lofts. Tom Riley's listed address. Jordan even pulled building access logs. Lakeside Lofts was one of those secured apartment complexes with electronic fobs. The front desk required ID and registered guests. A few polite emails and a faked security clearance audit later, Jordan had the logs forwarded to his burner email. Rachel had been there multiple times. Always around 7:30 p.m. Always on weeknights when she said she was at hot yoga. Always signed in under the same guest code. And every time, Tom signed in just minutes before her. Still, I needed one more thing. I needed visual. Not just data. Not just guesses and entries. I needed something that even she couldn't talk her way around. So I drove down there myself. I parked a block away and waited. That Thursday, she'd said she was meeting Lindsay again. Wine and venting night. Said I shouldn't wait up. Said she might crash there. My hands were shaking the whole time. I sat in my car watching the building. At 7:26 p.m., a black sedan pulled up. She stepped out wearing yoga pants and a loose sweater. No mat, no bag, no water bottle. Just her phone and a tiny purse. She didn't look around. She didn't hesitate. She walked straight through the glass doors and into the lobby like she belonged there. I gave her 2 minutes, then followed. The security guard barely looked up. I kept my hoodie low and pretended to check my phone while pacing near the entrance. There was a lounge area just past the lobby, with a couch and some vending machines, and a camera mounted above the elevator. I made a note of it. The next morning, I called the building manager. I told him I was part of a logistics company hired to do a facilities inspection, and that one of my clients had reported inconsistencies with their security system. It was a lie, a risk, but desperation makes you creative. He didn't bite immediately, but a few hours later, I got a Dropbox link in my email, and there it was, plain as day. 7:28 p.m. Thursday night. Rachel in the lobby, pressing the elevator button, and standing next to her, holding a key fob and smiling like he owned the world. Tom Riley. They weren't touching. Not in the footage. But they didn't have to be. The int asterisk Macy was in the way they moved. The way they walked side by side without looking at each other. Like people who no longer needed to. They were comfortable. Familiar. Casual in a way that cut deeper than any kiss ever could. I watched that 30-second clip 20 times. Each time I hoped it would look different. That I was overreacting. That maybe they just bumped into each other. That maybe it was all some elaborate misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was the truth. Cold, unflinching, captured in grainy 720p. And in that moment, I stopped hoping for explanations. I stopped wishing it wasn't real. Because it was. And the worst part? It had probably been going on for longer than I even realized. The rideshare logs went back 3 months. The building entries? At least 6. And who knows how many times they were careful or met somewhere else, or used burner phones and deleted calendars and cash transactions. This wasn't some emotional connection that spiraled out of control. It was coordinated, routine, efficient. She had systemized the betrayal. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat in my office with the video paused on the frame of her smiling at him and felt something inside me collapse. Not loudly, not like an explosion, more like the slow creaking of a structure finally giving out after years of stress fractures. But even in the pain, a strange sense of calm settled in, because now I had the truth. All of it. Not speculation, not guesswork, but hard, measurable, time-stamped proof. Rachel wasn't coming home late because she was tired from work. She wasn't going to yoga. She wasn't at Lindsay's. She was in someone else's condo, laughing, smiling, lying. And I had the receipts. All of them. I backed everything up twice. Cloud and external. Printed copies. Dated, sorted, cross-referenced. Jordan helped me build a timeline. Every transaction, ride, message, and log matched up with something she had lied about. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wasn't going to shout or beg or demand apologies. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of playing the wounded husband scene. I was going to disappear. Not physically, not dramatically, but strategically, quietly. Let her keep smiling. Let her keep lying. Let her keep thinking she had control. Because what she didn't know was that every secret she thought she buried had already been excavated. And soon, the ground beneath her was going to shift in a way she couldn't prepare for. The truth wasn't just power. It was leverage. And I was done waiting. The moment I decided to leave wasn't loud. No suitcase slamming. No dramatic speeches. No, how could you? Shouted across the kitchen. It happened in total silence. Me standing in the garage, watching the overhead light flicker, holding a box of old documents I hadn't touched since before the wedding. I think I just knew that I was done pretending, that no apology, no confession, no version of her face with tears on it would undo what she'd already chosen, over and over. I didn't tell her I was moving out. Instead, I waited until she went on a work retreat, which, by now, I understood to be code for another weekend at Tom Riley's condo, and I packed quietly. Essentials only. My clothes, my laptop, some family photos I wasn't willing to leave behind. I even left the wedding album on the shelf, not out of sentimentality, but because it felt like fiction now. A glossy book of strangers in costume. I moved into a furnished studio in downtown Chicago. It was small, one window, a kitchenette, a bed that creaked when I rolled over, but it was mine. Clean. Still. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without second-guessing the air around me. Then I did the thing I'd prepared for, long before this day ever came. I called my lawyer. Mr. Collins had been on retainer since before our wedding. At the time, it felt unnecessary. Rachel and I were in love, and I remember her joking that a prenup made it feel like I was planning for failure. I told her it was just responsible asset protection. A formality. She signed without reading closely. Or if she did, she didn't understand what it really meant. And what it meant was everything. You see, before we married, I put the house under a trust, North River Properties LLC, with the deed held by North River Trust. The entire purchase had been made with premarital funds, my savings, bonuses, and a lump sum inheritance from my grandfather. No marital commingling, no joint contributions, just me. Then, 6 months after the wedding, I refinanced the property under more favorable terms. Rachel, eager to get rid of a second mortgage payment that wasn't technically hers, signed the refinancing paperwork that explicitly waived any ownership claim. She initialed every page. Mr. Collins had told me, point blank, "You ever have to leave, Make sure the house is still titled this way. Keep your trust clean, your funds separate, and your paperwork airtight. I followed that advice like scripture. So when I sat down across from him in that cold, glass-walled conference room, I didn't ask what could be done. I asked, "Is it time to trigger the clause?" He smiled, thin and practiced. "She gave you cause?" I reached into my backpack, pulled out the manila folder labeled prank video March, and slid it across the table. "Malicious misrepresentation," I said. She filmed herself handing me a fake eviction notice and posted it online. Played it off as a joke, but she forged legal language, my name, our address, the trust entity. Collins opened the folder, watched a still frame from the video on my laptop, and nodded. "That'll do." By the end of the week, we had everything filed. Title reclassification request with the county. Beneficiary reaffirmation with North River Trust. Legal notification to Rachel via process server. And an emergency inspection request with trustee authority. Meanwhile, Rachel kept texting me like nothing had changed. "Can you grab almond milk on your way home? I think we're low on trash bags. Let's take a beach day this weekend." "Just us?" I didn't respond. I let the silence do the talking. Then one night she called. Her voice was all faux concern. "Hey, is everything okay? There's been a weird vibe lately." I didn't lie. I just said, "I've been busy. Work's heavy." She bought it, or pretended to. Either way, it didn't matter. 2 days later, I got a confirmation email from the county clerk's office. The house was now flagged as a disputed asset under trust management, meaning Rachel had no legal standing, no right to claim residence, no ownership interest, not even on paper. All thanks to a joke video she'd uploaded to a public platform for likes and comments. That forged eviction notice, the thing she thought made her look clever, became the very rope she'd handed me to pull the rug out from under her. I wasn't cruel. I didn't lock her out right away. I didn't want to fight, and I didn't need revenge. I just wanted my life back. Quietly, cleanly. But the trust didn't wait. 1 week after the filing, an inspector arrived unannounced to document the condition of the property. Rachel texted me in a panic. "Some guy is here taking pictures of the house? I think he's from the bank? Did you refinance again? Daniel, what the hell is going on?" I ignored all three. Then the locks changed. Under trust authority, the management company rekeyed every exterior door and issued new credentials. Rachel was given 48 hours to vacate. The notice came by certified mail, stapled to the front door she used to think she owned. I imagine that moment, her standing on the porch, envelope in hand, reading legal language that she couldn't laugh away, was when it finally clicked. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was real. She tried calling Collins. He didn't pick up. She tried emailing the trustee. No reply. Eventually, her own lawyer reached out and scheduled a mediation meeting. We sat at a long, polished table across from each other. She wore sunglasses indoors, trying to hide the damage the truth had finally done to her face. I didn't say a word. Her attorney cleared his throat. My client was under the impression she held equitable interest in the property. Collins chuckled. Her impression has no bearing on the trust agreement she signed, or the refinancing documents she initialed, or the prank video she filmed, which explicitly impersonates a legal authority. Shall I go on? The other attorney leaned back in his chair. Rachel started to speak. "Dan, please, don't," I said calmly. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was resolved. Her emergency petition for equitable interest was denied the same day it was filed. The judge took one look at the documents and cited breach of good faith, failure to contribute to the asset, and this one was poetic, malicious intent disguised as comedy. Her only claim, if any, was for marital property. And since everything had been kept separate, there wasn't much to fight over. Her lawyer recommended she walk away, take what little dignity remained and go. I could see it in her eyes, how quickly her world had shifted. She had been playing chess with a checker's mindset, thinking short-term, thinking feelings mattered more than facts. But feelings don't beat paper. And this time, the paper was all mine. The court didn't need much convincing. When the judge denied Rachel's emergency filing, the tone was formal, clipped, and utterly devastating for her. The ruling used phrases like no demonstrable interest, voluntary relinquishment of equity rights, and recorded evidence of willful misrepresentation. It sounded cold, legal, sterile. To me, it sounded like closure. Rachel left the courthouse that day without making eye contact. She moved stiffly, like someone walking underwater. Her lawyer said something about reconsidering options, but even he didn't sound convinced, because the facts weren't on her side. She could cry, she could blame, she could spin whatever narrative she wanted for her friends, her family, the group chat I knew she used to vent about me. But legally, she had nothing, and that terrified her more than anything else. Back at Collins's office, we activated the final stage. Clause 17C in the trust agreement, a section labeled Adversarial Trigger Events, granted administrative authority to the trust's primary beneficiary, me, in the event of public or private defamation, reputational sabotage, falsified legal documents, or conduct designed to compromise the financial standing of the trust. That clause had always been theoretical, until Rachel filmed a prank where she impersonated a legal entity and issued me a fake eviction notice while cackling for the camera. Collins submitted the video file, accompanied by an affidavit from a digital forensics expert confirming the upload date, metadata, and Rachel's active role in the production. That document alone made it impossible for her to argue ignorance or distance. Then we filed 3 letters. A notification of trust authority to the county clerk's office, confirming I was now acting as sole legal administrator under Clause 17C. A transfer of deed protection to North River Trust, reinforcing that the home could not be sold, leased, or altered without trustee oversight. A civil claim reservation, in case Rachel attempted to assert ownership or access in any future capacity. It wasn't about revenge. It was about removing her from the equation entirely. The trust wasn't just a shield. It was a scalpel, precision cutting her out of everything she thought she was entitled to. While Collins was filing the last wave of documents, I started getting texts from mutual friends, people we'd had over for dinner, people who once thought we were that couple, the one everyone secretly envied. The texts were all some version of the same question. Hey, is it true what Rachel's saying? She said you blindsided her. She posted something about being forced out of her own house? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. And soon, so would the county records. Within a week, the Cook County Property Portal updated the listing for our address. The owner field now read, North River Trust, managed by Daniel A. Whitmore. Under encumbrances, it showed, property under legal protection, title dispute resolved. That was it. Clean, official, undeniable. And Rachel? She found out the same way everyone else did. Apparently, she had told her friends she still lived there. Had even posted an Instagram story from the front porch with some cryptic caption like, they can try to erase you, but I built this life too. I'm not sure if it was delusion or desperation, but it didn't matter. 2 days after the listing went public, an enforcement rep from the trustee service hand-delivered her final notice. Vacate any remaining belongings by Friday, or the items would be cataloged and held in storage under trust security protocol. She didn't show up. I had a locksmith on site Saturday morning just in case. He walked through each room, verifying rekeying, checking window latches, replacing access codes. I watched him from the front hallway, the same hallway where Rachel had once filmed me holding that fake eviction notice, laughing like she'd pulled off the ultimate joke. There was no laughter now, just silence and control. Mine. Later that afternoon, I met with a court-appointed inspector who verified all items inside the property. We took photos of everything, furniture, decor, electronics, anything Rachel had purchased jointly or might try to claim. Each photo was time-stamped, logged, and uploaded to the trustee database. I never imagined I'd walk through our home like it was a crime scene, but that's what it had become. Not just a place where something happened, but the scene of a pattern, a structure built on half-truths, rebranded as love. By Monday, her lawyer reached out again, this time with a tone of defeat. Mr. Whitmore, my client is prepared to surrender all claims. She would like to recover personal items only. No dispute. We scheduled a supervised pickup for that Friday. She was given a 3-hour window, escorted by a neutral third party. I wasn't home. I didn't want to be. Collins advised me not to speak to her directly, not to interfere. But I did leave something for her. On the kitchen counter, in the exact spot she once tossed her keys every day after work, I placed a white envelope. No name on the outside. Inside was a single printed frame from her prank video. Me holding the fake eviction notice, looking confused. And below it, a sticky note that read, "You should have read the fine print." She didn't reply. Not directly. But that night, she posted a vague caption on her story. Something about lessons learned and regrets she'll carry forever. It was more dramatic than sincere, more performance than apology. The comments were filled with heart emojis and "you'll come back stronger" messages from people who had no idea what really happened. Let them believe what they want. The truth was in the filings. The video, the deed history, the signed documents with her initials on every page. Rachel could spin it however she wanted, but the legal system didn't care about feelings. Cared about facts. And the fact was, she tried to trick me. She laughed while doing it. And she handed me the very thing I used to win. Most people don't realize how much power is buried in paper. Not dramatic words or screaming matches or public breakdowns, but quiet clauses and notarized lines and sign. Here stickies that seal a future no one thinks they'll need until they do. I never wanted it to end this way. But once it did, I made sure it ended exactly on my terms.